and that was that it's not a reduced life, the Christian life. There's a fullness beyond anything in the whole world, and you see it when you see Kevin. When we saw Kevin, when you saw him stand up and talk about China, when you saw him talk about the unreached in Tibet, it wasn't a guilt trip. He never laid a guilt trip on anyone. He never wagged that big freckled finger and said, "You don't love people, you need to get out there." He never said that. He said, "You can go dance with the Uyghurs. You can go sit and drink tea with the Tibetan monks. You can go and ride rickshaws in India and eat curry and share the gospel with people. You can go hang out with the Fijians and sit in front of bars and tell them about Jesus." And I began to learn there's a war to fight. There's a world to enjoy. There's a great, great God to enjoy. And Kevin introduced me to that. And I'm working in Cambodia now. I've been in Cambodia over the last 6 years. I spent 3 years there. And I have a real void in my life. I grew up without a father. And if any of you guys grew up without a father, you know it's one of the hardest parts is you might suffer from character flaws. I have a lot of those. And Kevin knew that. And so Kevin was always there for me. And I want to serve God so bad, and I love sharing the gospel with people. But one of the things I lack is my character fails in so many areas. And Kevin knew that, and Kevin was there for me. He was there for me as a father. He was there for me to encourage me and mentor me and work through my character flaws. He spent hours listening to me whine about the stupid things. And he would just listen and nod his head and then say, you, Raya? And yeah, it wouldn't be quite appropriate if I told you what he said. But yeah, Kevin, missions for Kevin, it was not a chore that had to be done. It was a joy that we got to take part in living out. It was a joy for him. The Christian life for him was a joy. And evangelism came natural because it was a joy. Christianity was a joy for him. He wanted everyone to know about Jesus because it was a joy. And when he looked out and saw 3.5 billion people in the world who didn't even have the opportunity to have that joy, he thought, what greater joy than to go tell those 3.5 billion people? And he lived his life for that. And he sent so many of us out there and passed on that joy and that vision to so many of us. And I'm so grateful to him. And not just Kevin, but Kim also. Kim was behind us, all of us that are out there. Thank you so much, Kim. And I know we all love you. I can tell you guys about hundreds of people. I mean, I don't know them, but I know I can think of right now maybe at least a dozen people who would say, Kevin and Kim, they're my spiritual parents. And yeah. So thank you, Kim, and I miss Kevin a lot. Like I know we all are, but remember that. Let's remember that life and that vision. And I know I want to, and keep going for it. Yeah. So. Oh, yeah. One more of Kevin's spiritual children, Heather, would like to bring up.
Hey guys, I think we're all here today because Kevin really changed our lives and spoke into our lives, and I'm amazingly honored and privileged to be one of those people that he saw what God saw, and he pulled it out, and he called it out. And when we didn't believe in ourselves, he believed in us. And when we didn't believe that billions of people that are unreached could hear the gospel, he believed in it, and he believed that it's possible and that it could happen, and that it was true, and that it was joyous, and that there was nothing else worth living for and nothing else worth dying for. And I'm just really, really, really grateful and thankful that a lot of us have just known Kevin in the last 6 years, but that in that time, he was a miracle surviving and living to pour his life out that people would know God. And he poured his life out into us. And just the joy and amazing fun of hanging out with him in India and in China. And I'm living in China now, and he just came out a few years ago when we did our first DTS. And there was a girl that's from an unreached people group far out in the middle of Xinjiang. And he loved her and prophesied over her about the Father's love in her life. And she is running with it. And she just came back from going with friends who now are also believers to their hometowns, to their families out in the middle of nowhere. And they all believe in Jesus because of the legacy that Kevin passed on and the joy that it is. And we really, really love him, and I think a lot of us younger ones feel like we don't really know what we're going to do. We kind of feel like we don't really know who or how to fill that void that's left, but God was that for Kevin, and God is that for us, and so I really believe that, God is going to meet us in that, and that it'll continue on for generations and generations, and that there's more nations and more villages and more people who will be worshiping God because of the impact that Kevin had in our lives. So, thanks.
As one of the young ones, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I wrote this out and I was debating about using it, but I need to use it for potential structural integrity reasons, if you bear with me. First of all, thanks, Kim. Just let me share in this morning. I met Kevin about 6 years ago after a lunch I had with a gentleman named Phil McCallum. And to be honest, I'm a little vague in recollection about why we were having lunch that day exactly, but following the lunch, Phil told me I had to talk with this guy named Kevin Darrough, something to do with my desire to help pastors or something like that. So we set up a lunch, and it was the first of many, many, many lunches. And Kincaid's here in Hawaii was often the table of choice, but it didn't matter where it was. Kevin's booming laugh always echoed through every single restaurant. Didn't matter if it was a diner, if it was a bar and a grill, if it was a plush upholstered restaurant, his baritone knew no limits. Most of you know exactly what I'm talking about. He loved food, and I was no person to counter this passion of his. So we enjoyed one sumptuous repast after another over conversations of church planting or kingdom talk, or while he regaled me with tales of his travels across the globe, ministering to people in various corners and countries. All kinds of stories, like the one he kept telling me about eating dog cooked over burnt tires in some part of the Philippines. He loved that story. You see, it was the people that you've heard about this morning that served as one of the drivers for Kevin, right? He just loved people, and you've heard that over and over. And he loved church planters, and he loved Jesus. And without a doubt, one of the legacies of Mr. Kevin Darrough is the list of pastors and church planters whose lives he directly touched. Even for the seemingly brief time that he and I worked together right here at New Hope International, we were tremendously blessed and privileged to be part of the lives of such wonderful shepherds as Phil McCallum, Johnny Murillo, Kent Miyoshi, John Burgess, and there's many more. Each one of these guys and more would undoubtedly affirm right now the heart that Kevin had for them and for the people that they would eventually minister to in their churches all across the globe. And with each soul that draws closer to Jesus as a result of their ministries, Kevin's legacy continues to grow. I imagine that Kevin's with Jesus in his house right now, just off the Golden Street, sitting in his comfy easy chair and quietly reading a book. No way. No way. Come on. There's no way. Not the Kevin we know. He's probably got the music cranking, food lined up, and, the angels are probably nudging themselves, saying, he who's got an ear, but can we turn it down just a bit? No, he's hosting the biggest block party in the street, and his deeply infectious laugh is no doubt bouncing off the houses, fences, and furniture, upholstered or not. I miss Kevin terribly. He was a dear, dear brother and friend. But when I see him again in such a very short while, I imagine we will talk about the church plants, the kingdom, and we'll sit again and be regaled by the tales of the lives of the people whom God touched through Kevin's love and devotion to him. Thanks.
Aloha, everyone. I don't know really why I'm up here. I got a phone call last night and asking if I would speak about Kevin. And really, I was quite shocked, honored, but shocked because I don't really have a very good filter. Much like Kevin, I'm quite loud, boisterous, a little bit out there, crazy, willing to do anything, and I'm just shorter, fatter, and more brown than he is. I know, my name is Pilani, and I know him from New Hope. And to many of you, you know, Kevin and I had just a special kind of relationship. So special. You know, for so many of you, yes, he was a man of such wisdom, a wise man. To me, he was a wise guy. For many of you, yes, he was a mentor, someone who taught you, someone who led you. For me, he was my very own personal tormentor. We all know him as a warrior for Christ, a fighter. With me, he was a sparring partner of wit, humor. Between him and I, it was, when we got together, there was always sure to be spitfire and flames. We were always trying to see who could get at each other first and who would be the last to get in the last word. And he was just great. I knew him first at New Hope. I remember seeing him talk about when he had the cancer and he was recovering from it so miraculously. And I also, being a survivor of cancer, could so relate to that. And later got to meet him when we went on our Chinese mission trip together, where you saw that film where he was like, I was in Beijing and it's 102. And we did a whole funny sketch together on that. We have fond memories in Beijing together. And he was really great. I guess he used to eat dog over flat tire or whatever. Lies! Because I went to China, and instead of bringing clothes, I brought a 70-pound suitcase full of my own food. And he and Pastor Wayne would follow me around and steal all my food. So he was like pretending to eat all this exotic food, but really all my granola bars and my kakimochi was being stolen by Pastor Wayne and Kevin. I'm probably going to get excommunicated for that one. But we had fond memories. They would do torturous, tormenting things like dress me up with huge floral arrangements on the wall of China and film me, and then make me walk 10 miles and laugh at me the whole way. Kevin had lots of comments about that one. We had great times with our China missions gang on our first China missions trip with New Hope. And he was a great prayer warrior, and he was fun. And we did devotions together in the morning after breakfast in China. And he knew I was pretty green, and he never hesitated to tell me that, and keep me in line. And I don't know, he didn't keep me in line that good because he was out of line half the time anyway. We also, he always had a hidden agenda, that bugger. You know, he did this wonderful thing for his wife. They had this anniversary party, and he threw this beautiful anniversary party. India-themed food, people serving at tables, tents, lights, in this beautiful backyard at Auntie Sylvia's house. All this ocean in the background. Get a phone call. oh, P. Ilani, I want to invite you to our surprise anniversary party. Oh, me? I'm so honored. Thank you. And by the way, I need you to do me a favor. Yes, Kevin, what do you want now? I need you. Now, mind you, at the time I was about 250 pounds, okay? And it wasn't pretty. And I still can't see my toes, so it still ain't that pretty. He asked me if I could be the entertainment. But not just maybe an MC or, like a little hula dance. No, Pi'ilani, could you please do the belly dance and be a belly dancer at my anniversary party? Okay. Mentor? Tormentor. I'm like, but who could refuse Kevin? Could you refuse him? Could you refuse him with his love for Kim and wanting to make it so special, that kind of love? Couldn't do it. Couldn't say no. If I wasn't Christian, I would. Yeah, find an outfit that fits, that has elastic. And I did. And it wasn't pretty. But I roped one of those halal girls, Linda, who was on our China trip. We dressed up. I got elastic. My belly was hanging out. It was scaring half of the guests there. I had things going. I was doing things to some men I didn't even know. And his only request quietly was, please, just don't do anything to Kim. She's really shy. If he had only cared enough about my feelings that day. Well, we had a fabulous night that night, and I praise God that the filming on that has never been found again. I was sort of fearful, like, oh no, did they find that? It's not going to be up, will it? But it wasn't. Well, another neat thing about Kevin was, I used to actually work at the hospital as a medical social worker. And I used to get to look on the weekends. I'd have to work on call, so I'd get to look at the list. And if I'd spot his name, I'd be like, oh, right on, I could go make trouble. So I'd be like, I'm going to go cruise in his room and watch TV. I'd be like, it doesn't matter, I don't work there anymore. So if there's a boss, yeah, whatever. So I'd be like cruising up there. I'd be like, oh, yo, Kev, what's up? So I'd kick it back in his room, and we'd be talking a lot because, I knew what it was like to have cancer. Him so many times, me 3. And we'd sit there, and it was back and forth, barbs after barbs, because I think the both of us knew when you're looking in the face of death, there is really nothing you can do but stare at it, maybe like the Tibetan monks. And laugh. And that's what we did. We just laughed. Because we don't let the disease define us. Chronic, terminal, whatever, cancer, whatever you have. What defined him was his love for God. And we'd sit there and I'd say, so he'd be on the IV, I'd be like, oh, taking up all of Kaiser's lobster and steak again, are ya? Sucking it up. And, we just have a good time. But you know what I'd see? His face would be pale. But in his eyes, you'd see the fire for God burn so brightly It was amazing. He could be so sick, so pale, in so much pain. And still that fire, it would burn so brightly. I was amazed. I was in awe. And I was motivated to become more like that. And there was one day we discussed, what would heaven be like? Because I'd been struggling with the cancer too, and illnesses. And I said, what would your heaven be like? And I shared it. He said, well, what would your heaven be like, Pi'ilani? And I said, my heaven is going to be the hugest dessert buffet ever. There will be a chocolate fountain. There's going to be key lime pie, cheesecake. There'll be I was just going macadamia nut pie. I was just going on about every single dessert there was going to be. And I said, Kev, what's your heaven going to be like? He said, I'm going to have been there first and ate it all. And guess what he's doing right now? It's even on the picture. He's eating all my dessert. So on my Facebook this morning, I said, I'm off to go to the celebration of Kevin Darrow's life, ... Rats, he beat me to heaven. He's eating my dessert buffet. I know that's what he's doing. And he's enjoying it and laughing. But that fire, everything, I'd be kicking it with him. My pager would be going off, beep, 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 which meant there was another patient I had to go see. And he'd be like, Pilani, go back to work. Then I'd sneak back in again, and we'd talk and watch TV, and beep, 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 beep. And I'm like, oh, and he goes, Pilani, get back to work. And then I'd come back again, I'd run back, because I'd just keep doing that, because I'd stay like late till night because I wouldn't get my work done, because I just kept wanting to play with him. And get back to work. Because he's so infectious and he's just so attractive. It's like moths to a flame. You want that light, you want that fire. But I think that fire shone so bright and he burned so bright, and maybe not for as long as we would have wanted, because he was meant to light all of our candles. Because each one of us are meant to be lit and be that candle. And in the words of Kevin right now, his dying ember, his embers that have just gone down, well, each one of us lights this room and has been lit by that flame, that burning, just bonfire. And we've all been lit by it. We are those candles. And he means us to go out into the darkness. So in the words of Kevin, get back to work.
Kim asked me to sing a song that I wrote a while ago called All for Christ. And I wrote this song a few years ago in just a normal quiet time I was having, just opening up my Bible and, having a good time with the Lord. And then all of a sudden he speaks to me and he says, Daniel, are you willing to die for me? And I was like, whoa, God, I'm just having a little quiet time here. Why do you have to be so serious? Come on, chill out. And then he asked me again, and I was like, are you for real? And I was like, okay. Oh, he's serious. And I was like, okay, I got to be serious about this too. And I said, yeah, God, I am. Anything, God, anything. I've already given you my entire life. I'm willing to die for you. I'm willing to go to the nations for you. I'm willing to do anything for you, God. And in about 5 minutes after that, the Lord gave me this song and called All for Christ. It just came within 5 minutes. And I was thinking about it, and the most amazing thing about Kevin is that in the midst of so many years of struggling through cancer and pain, he lived. You know what I mean? It was just, I just couldn't, so many of us have stories about Kevin when we're meeting with him and he's in so much pain and he's like, oh, so how are you doing? And we're all like, wait, no, don't ask about me. You're the one with cancer, And that was the thing about Kevin is that, God asked me, are you willing to die for me? And the thing about Kevin, the ironic thing, is that Kevin, in the midst of death, he lived. He was going to China. He was going to India. I even remember thinking in my head sometimes, like my dad would call me up and it's like, oh, Kevin's cancer is getting worse or something, but he's going to China. I'm like, tell him don't go. Don't rest. Chill out, But in the face of all that, he lived. And it's something that I've learned from his life is to live, And so the song is called All for Christ. And many of you know this song, so feel free to sing along on the chorus with me if you want.
Set apart to know that you are my all in all, and I'm seeing your mercy. I've been lost in your peace, and I've been through the fire. I've been washed in the deep. If there's one thing I ask for, if there's one thing I see, I want to be the one who says, whether I live, whether I die, it's for Christ. Whether and I'm seeing your mercy. I've been lost in your peace, and I've been through the fire. I've been washed in the deep. If there's one thing I ask for, if there's one thing I seek, yeah, I want to be the one who says, whether I live, yeah, whether I die, it's for Christ. Whether I live, whether I die, it's for Christ. Whether I live, oh Lord, whether I die, it's for Christ. Whether I live, whether I die, it's for Christ. It's all for Christ. This I will seek, to be in your house forever. One thing I ask, this I will seek, oh, to be in your house forever, 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 sing it with me now. Whether I live, whether I die, it's for Christ. Whether I live, whether I die, it's for Christ. One more time. Whether I live, whether I die, it's for Christ. Whether I live, whether I die, it's for Christ. Amen.
I asked the guys in the back to put a slide up for me that was showing earlier before we all walked in. And it has a picture of Kevin holding up a potato. And when I saw that, it's the first time I'd ever seen that picture, but when I saw that, I went to the back and I said, could you put that picture up? Because that's Kevin. Kevin in a nutshell. Serious fun. Kevin could hold up a potato in the middle of China and say, speaking of potatoes, did you know that Jesus died for your sins? And he would go off and preach the gospel, and that's just the way he was. And I've written 3 books on evangelism, and I was taking good notes because that was good advice, because Kevin could make life serious fun, and Kevin was truly one of my best friends, and I just learned so much from him. I was kind of always his friend and his leader, but I learned so much from him. And it was so much about life, you know. Jesus said he came to give us abundant life, and so many of us live like there's no life. And I'm going to do something in just a minute that I know Kevin would want me to do, and that is to challenge you to make sure you've got that life. Because Kevin lived life to the fullest. He really did. And now he's really living life to the fullest. This morning I got up early, and I was making myself a cup of tea, and my grandson's staying with us, Malachi, my 6-year-old grandson, and we were the only ones up, and he came down, and he said, what you doing, Papa? And I said, I'm just getting my heart together for today's service for Uncle Kevin. And I said, you know what we're doing today, right? And he goes, yeah, Uncle Kevin is in heaven. And I said, yeah. And I said, what do you think he's doing in heaven? He said, oh, he's playing. And I said, that is what Kevin would do if he went to heaven. I said, what do you think he's playing? He said, hide and go seek. And I said, it might be kind of, I was pulling my theological card on him. I said, you know, it might be hard to play hide and go seek with God because God's invisible. And he said, Jesus isn't invisible. I said, the young kid's a theologian already. But he had the point of it, is that Kevin's in heaven and he's playing right now. And Kevin taught me how to play. I first met him in 1978, the night he gave his life to Christ. I was preaching at this meeting, and afterwards he came up and was, you talk about a ripe person ready to become a Christian, and he walked up and he said, could you tell me how I can become a Christian? And I was preoccupied with, I promised to talk to somebody else, and I said, well, accept Jesus into your heart and follow him. And I kind of sent him over to somebody else and shined him on. And he never let me live that down. He said, you had the opportunity to lead me to Christ and you blew it. So now I can't tell you that I led him to the Lord, but I have known him for these 30 years and have seen through his life the pioneering of the Daybreak ministry that led hundreds of people to Christ all over Asia, and the time that he spent in the Philippines, just pioneering down there in the slums of Nagtahan and helping to launch other churches and ministries. And then on from there to Delhi, India, where he went off and he pioneered and released a lot of other Indians into the ministry. He went back to California for a while, but he wasn't resting. He was recruiting people like Amos and others to come and challenge into missions. And then there's been this last 12 years where he worked both with New Hope and with YWAM, and this whole new generation of people like Heather and Uriah and Dan and many others that are here today and would love to share. And we're kind of winding things down right now, but I first met Kevin in 1978, and I was with him a couple hours before he died. And I went into his room, and he just it's so fun to see the video footage of him when he looked healthy and vibrant, and he had this strong body. And he was always using his body, to make us laugh. And when he would preach, he would be so animated, and he would say, "We got to dance with the Uyghurs," and he would say things like that. And he just taught me how not to be religious. And he taught me that God's got a sense of humor too, and God created Kevin. God, billions of years ago, thought up in his mind and says, "I think I'm going to break the mold and I'm going to make a Kevin." And for 30 years, we bugged each other. I bugged him about his red hair, and he bugged me about being a little guy. And we just, we had this one